Welcome to the Alpha Warrior Show. We're excited to share diverse perspectives and expert insights with you. Please note that the views and information expressed by our guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the Alpha Warrior Show, its management, or our partners. Each of our affiliates and sponsors and partnerships is a separate entity, and their opinions are their own. Today's content is provided for information and educational purposes and should not be taken as specific advice, whether it be financial, medical, or legal. While we strive to present accurate and useful information, we cannot guarantee its completeness or relevance to your specific situation. We provide all information as is and encourage you to consult with a professional advisor to address your specific individual needs. Your use of any information from this broadcast is entirely at your own risk. By listening further, you agree to identify and protect the Alpha Warrior Show and its associates from any claims or damages arising from your use of this broadcast content. Changes to this disclaimer may be made at any time and will be done effectively immediately upon posting or broadcasting. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope you find the episode both informative and thought-provoking. Listener discretion is advised. That fires me up every time. I know it fires you guys up because I see the messages, I read the DMs. You guys, this is the Alpha Warrior Show. I'm your host, Alpha. A lot going on in the country, as always, and it seems the closer we get to November, temperatures getting a little bit hotter. The guest that we have today, you guys, someone who is just an absolute patriot, has firsthand knowledge of what's going on. I'm telling you, you guys, you're going to want to clip this. You're going to want to share this. A lot of you guys are pissed off. You're always sending questions. Alpha, we need to know more about child trafficking. We need to know about more human trafficking. What the heck's going on with our country? You're going to get those answers from today's guest. But before we do that, I got to keep the lights on. So let's get 2 quick commercials out of the way. And then after that, we're commercial free for the rest of this show. So I'll be back in just a moment.
Welcome to the next generation of warfare, psychological warfare. In modern conflict, the mind is a potent weapon. Discover General Michael T. Flynn's groundbreaking guide, The Citizen's Guide to 5th Generation Warfare. Unlock tactics, strategies, and the mindset to navigate this cognitive battlefield that we all find ourselves in. Equip yourself against manipulation and emerge unscathed. Unleash your potential. Order now.
I'm excited to announce we're having a huge MyPillow spring sale, and here's a few examples. Buy one of our MyPillow 2.0s, you get another MyPillow 2.0 absolutely free. Made with cooling technology, the best pillow ever just got even better. And this just in, 9 brand new colors and styles of our Percale bed sheets. They're made with the finest long staple cotton, and now you can save 50% or more. That's as low as $24.98. And for the first time this year, I'm bringing you our My Slippers and Sandals for as low as $25 a pair. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get your MyPillow 2.0s. Buy one, get one free. Percale sheets as low as $24.98. My slippers and sandals as low as $25 a pair. And for a limited time, when you order $75 or more, your entire order ships absolutely free.
Absolutely free. My Pillow, my store. Promo code Alpha works at both of those. GeneralFlynn.com/alpha. Make sure you go to his website. If you haven't seen the film, you got to go see it. You know, the truth at all costs. And right now, as I bring up JJ, you guys are going to see the truth at all costs. This man served our country for a very long time, continues to serve our country. So without further ado, you guys, J.J. CARRELL, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, and you're right. I wish I had that type of intro every time that I came on a show. It's awesome. It's a great job on that. Pumps me up. To talk about something that is, I believe, is the greatest threat to our republic, is the open border and the millions of people come, tens of millions. And then you touched on a subject that a lot of people don't want to talk about. I'll be honest, I find no joy in talking about it. I think it's dirty, it's uncomfortable, and it's evil, and it's child sex trafficking, and it's nobody wants to talk about it, but it is a sin. It's a stain on the soul of America.
You know, it's always an honor for me, brother, when I get to talk to someone that wore the badge. You know, I of course, I mean, you do a show. You know, you're a co-host, and we'll make sure to plug that in the audience. And for those are you new to the show, down in the description is the links to everything to follow what JJ is doing. So if you're driving, don't worry about it. You don't got to pull over after the show. Just go down there, click it, and you'll find it. But the reason it's always an honor is when we put that steel on our chest. You know, there's an oath, there's a promise. I mean, ultimately, we're saying, hey, if we got to lay down our life for this nation, we're going to do it. And so when someone like you or me made that promise, and then we see the things that are happening in our nation, and we know the people that lost their lives wearing that piece of metal on their chest, it just hits a different way. And, you know, even though you're done with your service at Border Patrol, I just knowing men like you know, we're cut from this cloth, that the fight's is never over. Until things are safe again, it's not. And I mean, your guys's, you know, your crew, you know, the Border Patrol agents, you guys are like at the threshold where this is unfolding, where it goes from a foreign land to our land. How bad is it, man?
However bad you think it is, it's worse. However big you think the industrial machine is, it's bigger. Let me give you an example. So I left I did 24 years. I was a journeyman agent, ran a large task force, and became a deputy patrol agent in charge. And I know no one cares about titles, but it's important just from this aspect that there's about 2,500 agents, or work 2,500 agents in San Diego sector, where I spent the majority of my career, all of my career. I was like in the top 25 of those 2,500 agents. So I come with a different perspective, right? I come from boots on the ground, dealing with the policies and the law, handling myself during the most violent times on the border. I bordered Tijuana, ran ATV units, got in fights every day, broken bones, rose up through the ranks. So now I have a very unique perspective of about a 20,000-foot view of looking up to the DC, seeing that policy come down. How am I going to implement it? You know, manpower, posture, all that stuff that nobody cares about. You just want to get out there and work. So I have a very unique perspective. So when I talk to you about what's happening on the border, I'm not a talking head. I'm not academic about it. I was there. I know it. So when I tell you that it's bad, I'm telling you that my last year in the United States Border Patrol was Joe Biden's first year. I saw the genesis of this. It actually started all the way back with Obama, okay? It started actually back in 1965 under the line of the Sen Ted Kennedy and the Immigration and Nationality Act, all the way to present day. But the acceleration was under President Obama, and now we see it. It's on steroids under Biden. I'm telling you, everything that's happening on the border now is illegal. It's unconstitutional, and I can go through that, the litany of the sins. But I'm telling you, as bad as I thought it was 3 years ago when I retired, I went back to San Diego to begin filming my documentary, What is Treason? And I was jarred, dude. I was jarred because it's bigger than even what I knew it was. The NGOs, non-governmental organizations, the child sex trafficking, the size and the federal funding of the mechanisms used to destroy America is so entrenched, it's so big that I was flying home from San Diego after interviewing a bunch of agents, my friends, former colleagues, interviewing people at DHS, and seeing the border, actually going back down the border and walking the border where I spilled blood and I spilled other men's blood to secure our nation. There was 150 Middle Easterners, men from the continent of Africa, from India, were living on our side of the border where I fought for years to control and get sovereignty. They own the border now, guys. We have abdicated America to foreign nationals. And let me just be very clear in a long way of telling you how the border is. I want your audience to understand. I don't like clickbait. I don't like saying things because of drama or try to hyperbole. This is the truth. And if you don't like it, I really don't. I'm at the point where I don't care anymore because the truth is the truth. Your government has, at the highest level possible, sat down in rooms and made decisions and strategically, intentionally made decisions to destroy the United States of America. There is no other explanation. And we'll go through this and we'll go through the data and the numbers and on and on. But ultimately, it's going to come down to this very simple question. Tell me how it benefits America to allow in 30 million illegal aliens into the United States of America, how that benefits America in any way, and then your government does nothing to stop it and does everything to increase and facilitate the flow of illegal aliens into our country at an unprecedented rate. And the answer is, you can't give me a better answer than I give you.
You know, to that point, JJ, I think probably one of the strongest points I see being made, even by people that recognize that there is at least a situation unfolding at the border. And I'll tell you what, when you tell me that it's worse than what I can imagine, and I just think back, it's been about 5 years since, I wore the badge. But I think back, because I'm in Southern California, so we would get, the briefings from like Calexico and Blythe and TJ San Diego. And I remember those safety bulletins. And some of those, there were some bad situations, man. Like I remember them telling us, be careful with some of these trucks you pull over because they're being told, you lose this load without fighting it out with the cops. Your family's going to pay the price. Like, it was bad. And so for me to kind of fathom that I still can't even grasp how bad it is, it makes me worried, man. It makes me worried, especially with how close I live to the border out here. But I hear people that are, our government's failing. But I know the checks and balances that go into these things. Like, this isn't just somebody making a choice. Like you said, at the highest levels, there's briefings, there's people going in there with stats. You're talking about the smartest of the smart people, that get brought to, these, whether it be generals or whoever it is, to make these decisions. So it's not like there's a lack of intelligence. For me, it just feels like this isn't a failure. It's designed to go down this way. What are your thoughts? Is this just me being a conspiracy theorist, or are they really trying to make this happen?
No, they're not trying to make it happen. They've made it happen. Okay, let's just go down. Let's start all the way at the genesis of it. Okay, so you cross into South America. You come through Panama. It's called the Darien Gap. It's treacherous. People coming up the Darien Gap, women and children. Up to 80% of the women and children are raped or sexually abused. Let me repeat that so you understand it's clear. This is left-wing organizations that have come out and said, yeah, this is true, and it's a horrible fact. 8 out of 10 women and children are raped and sexually abused before they even get into America. So when you're making that journey, guys, and you're making that journey up from the Darien Gap through the jungle, and you're slipping, you're in mudslides, you're stepping over dead bodies because people are dying all the time out there. Alejandro Mayorkas, the Secretary of DHS, was caught down in the Darien Gap jungle in April of 2022 by Michael Yon. He had a drone, and he saw the Black Hawk helicopters coming in. He's like, what the hell's going on? In the middle of the jungle, there's a small detention facility think of a place to a way station for illegal aliens. Mayorkas is down there because we're building the way station for allowing illegal aliens to come in. We have the the Secretary of DHS down in the jungle creating and funding a facility that will house, clothe, feed, medicate illegal aliens that are coming to the country. He builds them in Central America. He builds them in Mexico. Our government made it easier for people to transition and come into America. Now, within the first 120 days of a new administration, you can't fire the sitting Border Patrol chief. It's a policy. So the chief under President Trump was Rodney Scott, great patriot. Mayorkas brought him into his office, and his first meeting, and I'm almost going to quote this because it's in congressional testimony. They asked Chief Scott, what was your first meeting like with Secretary Mayorkas? Secretary Mayorkas said, Chief, I want you to open up as many avenues as possible to allow in as many people as possible. This is the head of DHS that is responsible for the security and safety and sovereignty of America, telling the #1 law enforcement officer on the border, Chief Scott, I want you to bring in as many people as possible. Now listen, you may believe whatever you want to believe. I'm telling you, the tip of the spear is Mayorkas. He has created every policy all the way back to Obama's time. People think he fell out of the sky. He was the director of USCIS under Obama, all the way up, become deputy secretary. He has created, this man alone, DACA, prosecutorial discretion, catch and release, CBP One app, destruction of the asylum program, created parole system out of whole cloth. And you're asking me, and it's a great question, is this a bunch of stupid morons up in DC making bad decisions? No, nobody could have ever made this type of decision. Listen, in 23 years of my 24-year career, do you know how many people that I released into America after I arrested directly or indirectly over almost 20,000 arrests? Do you know how many people I released? Zero. Do you know why? Because it's against the law to release illegal aliens into America. You can't do it. It's the Immigration Nationality Act. You can't do it. Do you know how many people are released on the border every day? 97% of everyone. And we are arresting anywhere from 8,500 to 15,000 people a day. A day, not a month or a year, every single day for 4 years now, almost 4 years.
That is insane. So then my question to you, JJ, and I know this is speculation here, if that's how many we're arresting, how many are, in your best educated guesstimate, how many do we know are coming across that we're not even making contact with?
That's a great question because we call them getaways. So never before in the history of the United States Border Patrol has the border been left unopened. We may have stretched, like, I don't have enough guys, so JJ, you're gonna work in Arizona, you're gonna work 50 miles or 20 miles, whatever. But I own that part of that border, so I could tell you who crossed, how many, right? Right now, 80% of the border at any given time is unmanned. 80% of 2,000 miles is 1,600 miles, meaning 1,600 miles, there's not a Border Patrol agent. There's not one Border Patrol agent. So when you talk about getaways, I'm going to tell you, this is what DHS claims. DHS claims about 3 million getaways in the last 3.5 years. Everyone that's in the business laughs at that. We all know the number is anywhere between 15 and 18 million. Okay? The rule of thumb is about 1 to 1, 2 to 1, maybe sometimes 3 to 1 of what you arrest, what you get away. They have, at the end of Joe Biden's term, will have arrested and released over 12 million people. 12 million by their own numbers. I believe their numbers are complete lies, and we can get into that. But that's their numbers. I'm telling you, at least almost 30 million illegal aliens will have crossed, arrested and released, or absconded under Joe Biden.
Yeah,
30 million.
That is insane. That kind of number can change the entire demographics of a country. especially a country as big as ours. 30 million is not a little number. And just to put in perspective for people, and I share this as often as I can, JJ, when we were in Iraq, the most US forces we ever had in Iraq at one time was 360,000. And so if you think back to the Fox News and CNN and you saw the information graphics, troops everywhere, we saw that seems like a lot. I mean, 360,000 is a lot. And you're telling me 30 million?
Okay, let's break it down. Let's make sure that everyone's clear on something too. So in 2018, 2019, MIT and Yale did this incredible study, and they poured all kinds of demographic data into an algorithm, and it ran that algorithm a million times. And they came up with a high of 29 million and a mean, the average of 22 million. And everyone finally said, okay, that's the real number. I knew the number was a little higher, but let's just play the game of you're right. 22 million. That was in 2018 and 19. Right now, under congressional testimony, congressmen have come out and said, well, the real number is about 45 million. I know the number is closer to 50 million. They are now claiming, Center for Immigration Studies, CIS.org, their record is perfect. They're incredible. They've been around decades. They say that 52 million, roughly 52 million people living in America are foreign-born nationals. So that means 1 in 6 residents in the United States of America has no allegiance to America. Now you tell me, sir, you've been in war, you've been in the war, the badge, you're talking about being in Afghanistan. No nation on planet Earth has ever sustained this level of demographic shift and said, yeah, we're going to be okay. No, that's a lie. Now, when you dive into the numbers, this is where it gets really, really deep and dirty. When you get into the numbers and the type of person that's crossing the border, and I'm talking about just what DHS claims to arrest and release, not the getaways, the 12 million, just that number. At the end of Joe Biden's term, he will have arrested and released over 250,000 special interest aliens. Those are called terrorists. Release them. Do you know how many I released, Alpha, on my whole career, running a station, everything? I arrested at least 5, maybe 5 special interests in my whole life, my whole career. You know how many I released? 0. If I would have released 1, they would have come down and taken my gun and my badge and put me on the rubber gun squad and then ultimately fired me after an investigation. Why in God's name, JJ, did you release somebody that came from a terrorist nation as a terrorist on some level? High level, low level, doesn't matter. You released them. Why would you do that? Are you dirty? You have to be dirty. You have to be compromised or grossly ignorant, and therefore I'm going to demote you and take the stuff off your collar and make you go back down to be a pogue again. But we arrested 250,000. My guys that I went into battle with my whole career that are still there are calling me and telling me, without a shadow of a doubt, I am releasing terrorists into a nation. Without a shadow of a doubt. In the 12 million, 210,000 Chinese nationals will have crossed the border illegally. I spoke illegally and released. I spoke to a very high-level intelligence operator just last week, and he said, yes, you're absolutely correct. Yeah, I know I'm correct about these numbers. I'm just using DHS. He said, but I've heard you talk about PLA soldiers. And I said, yes, they're here. And he says, I just want you to know the real number of PLA soldiers is about 120,000. 120,000 known PLA soldiers in America. I am going to estimate at least another 500,000 special interest aliens. I'm telling you, over 1 million Venezuelans from the jails and insane asylums, 1 million Haitians from war-torn Haiti, Russians into 250,000 Russians, Middle Eastern people. The majority, 60 to 70% of everyone crossing the border are single adult military age men. Let me repeat that so everybody is very clear. On the low end, 60% of everyone crossing the border, single adult military age men from China, Iran, Russia, the Middle East, Venezuela, and Haiti. Now you tell me 60% of 30 million, you tell me how that is going to play out in our favor. And I'm going to quote Christopher Wray. Christopher Wray is quoted saying in front of 3,000 sheriffs across the nation, there are more red flags today than there were before 9/11. I'm also going to almost quote Christopher Wray under congressional oath, sitting next to the traitor Mayorkas, and I will say he's a traitor, and I know that puts a mark on my back, and I'm not going to step away from that statement. Christopher Wray said, they asked him, where are all the terrorists? Meaning, are you tracking them? And he says, I can't track. There's too many. There's too many. Listen, man, I don't take any joy out of this. Listen, I would love to come in on your show talking about how secure our border is under President Trump. He got his second year and it shut down because under President Trump, we had the most secure border ever. Let me just give you some data points so you understand the severity of what's happened. At the end of Donald Trump's last year in office, we were averaging 500 to 600 arrests a day over the whole United States of America. That's like a drip in a faucet. That's a nothing. And everyone was deported. Everyone was deported. The day Joe Biden took office, because I had access to the 24-hour reports in my position, 5,000 to 6,000 arrests a day. And they have not stopped until present day. The present day, guys, we saw the height. The height was over 20,000 a day in December. 20,000 a day. Let me try to put this in perspective, okay? Because we're talking about such amazing numbers. In Southern California, the beautiful Rose Bowl, okay, holds 100,000 people. Right now, just on today's average, 8,500 to 15,000 arrests. Let's just say 10,000 because it's easy to multiply, divide. I still think that's just what's arrested. I think the number's double, about 20,000. Let's just stay with 100,000. On day one, I'm going to go to the Rose Bowl and I'm going to open the southern gates and I'm going to flood that stadium to capacity, like a Super Bowl. I'm going to put 100,000 people in there in 10 days. In 10 days. And within 10 days, at least 60 to 70% of them are going to be single adult military age men from nations that hate us, that despise us. The other 30% are going to be women and children and their husbands or boyfriends. Of those 30%, let's say 20% of women and children, 80% of that 20,000 will be brutally raped or sexually assaulted. And on the 10th day at midnight, I'm going to walk to the north end of that stadium and I'm going to flush that stadium. And I'm going to push all 100,000 of them into America. At the same time, I'm going to usher in another 10,000. Over the next 10 days, I'm going to fill up the Rose Bowl. And on the 10th day, I'm going to release them into America. And I'm going to do that over and over and over again for 4 years. Now, you tell me, how the hell does America survive? Answer, no one. No one can answer me. And then I'm going to follow up with that question. And I'm going to tell you that there's not one law enforcement strategy being implemented right now to stop it. In fact, Border Patrol agents are facilitating the passage of these illegal aliens at unprecedented rates. It's growing, people. I don't know how to truly articulate the danger that America is in. We are the most vulnerable that we have ever been. We're not even talking about the coastlines or the northern border that's almost 5,400 miles, and they have less than 2,000 agents, and they have more arrests in the last 10 months than they have done in the last 10 years.
You know, I'm listening to those numbers and how this is, I mean, it literally sounds like a military deployment. When you're telling me that many numbers, that, I mean, that's just that's how my brain sees it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, like this is, I know we don't have a way of, well, at least according to, you know, Ray saying there's too many to track, but do we have any concept of where they're going? And then who's taking care of them? Like, are they depleting the social services programs? Is this federal money? I mean, they have to be getting food and housing. Like, they have to be surviving some way. Do we even know how that's happening?
Yeah, I'll tell you how it's First, I want you to understand. You said it right, and I agree with you on this. And I propose this as reality. This is a military style operation. Okay, when you come into like you're going into Iraq. When you cross into Iraq, did you just stop there and just no? You moved forward, didn't you? And then you had supply lines. You had people in front of you setting up supply lines, setting up roads. How I'm going to move? How am I going to move 300 something thousand soldiers? You need to feed them. They need to have hydration. You need weapons. The same thing is happening with this. And let me explain. The unholy alliance between the federal government and NGOs. You need NGOs because the federal government does not have, let's say, 12 million cross. Federal government doesn't have enough Border Patrol agents to transport 12 million people into the interior of a nation. You know how hard it is to move military guys and move equipment. I mean, it's forever, right? There has to be a system laid out. That's where the NGOs come in. The NGOs come in. They take the agents process and vet these people, which is a lie. If they just do a cursory check and they move them out. The NGOs take them, put them on buses, take them to hotels all across the border that the government pays for the whole hotel, shuts the whole hotel down. And then they fly them on taxpayer money, wherever they want to go, we fly them. So let's look at feeding them in San Diego. Let's just take San Diego, for example. It's the epicenter now of illegal alien crossings, okay? One hotel, not a dozen, 2 dozen. I'm just talking about one hotel in San Diego, the Hampton Inn. They have sealed it off with chain link fence, with tarps around so you can't see. I can't go into Hampton Inn and reserve a room because the government has bought all the rooms. This is in Hotel Circle. It ranges from $180 to maybe $400 a night, depending on the season. There's armed guards inside. Every room, say 300 rooms, fully paid. I know the person that is catering. I was showed the restaurant. They provide 1,500 meals a day at $30 a meal. The illegal aliens get free same-day laundry service. When you cross the border, the government gives you a brand new iPhone. Okay? Now, once those illegal aliens are transported and flown to, say, Chicago, they have brand new hotels waiting for them, or New York. In New York City, it's hard to believe. Sometimes I say it, I know no one's going to believe me. Fact check me. Everything fact check me. In New York City, 50% of the hotels are assigned to illegal aliens. 50%. Let's take the Row Hotel. Row Hotel is between a 3 and a 4-star hotel. There's 5,000 people living in Row Hotel. You have illegal aliens that have been there for over a year. Over a year. Now, this is where I really like to just say, let me really tell you about the cost. It costs about $100 a day to feed one illegal alien in New York City. Illegal aliens have been there for over a year, 18 months. So in order to pay food for one person in New York City, illegal alien is $36,000 a year. $36,000 a year. So when we go back to the question of how they're being fed and stuff, well, it's been done through the NGOs. Now, when I was in San Diego, I interviewed not a whistleblower, but someone that worked in the DHS, not someone that heard about it or maybe saw a memo. The guy was in a room, a big room, with other people that cut the checks. They wrote the checks to the NGOs and hit the button and sent the electronic transfer. So I said, tell me about the NGOs. What's the largest check you cut? And he said, the largest check I cut to Jewish Family Services was $600 million.
What?
And I said, okay, hold on. No. Again, this is the tip of the iceberg. I said, okay, 600 million, that's for like 2 or 3 years. And he laughed at me. He said, JJ, that's for 2 or 3 months. And then I said, okay, hold on. You have Catholic Charities, Lutheran Family Services, United Way, and a couple other big dogs, right? I said, so other people are cutting checks for the same amount to other. He goes, yes, all day, all night. And he says, well, this is where it gets very dirty. I said, it gets more dirty than this? He goes, under Jewish Family Services, there's 50 more subcontractors. And the subcontractors will call us and say, we work under Jewish Family Services. I need $2 million for diapers. I need $5 million for the COVID test. I need X, Y, and Z. So we cut them a check as fast as we can because we're in a crisis mode because people are packing in on the border. We got to get them out. And he said, well, he goes, JJ, where do you think when I hit that electronic fund transfer, what bank account does it go to? And I said, well, it has to go to subcontractor X, right? No, it goes to Jewish Family Services bank account. So Jewish Family Services has all these subcontractors and they're laundering money up to the main people. So I need your audience to understand the NGOs are costing the federal government billions with a B every month. And to understand the totality of the cost of NGOs and the whole immigration system, this is Biden's numbers, not mine, Biden's. The low end of cost for 4 years of housing, educating, medicating, whatever illegal aliens, $700 billion. Everyone in the know believes that we have already eclipsed $1 trillion. That's with a T, trillion. For illegal aliens, how many veterans are living on the street destitute? Chicago. Let me paint you a picture of what Chicago looks like. I went to Chicago. I went down the South Side. I talked to gang members, street pastors, mega church pastors, politicians, gang guys that came out of prison for murder for 21, 26 years, all Black Americans. You know what they told me? We are being replaced. Our city government has given $3 billion to illegal aliens, and we're going to war. I said, war? They said, we're going to war because they have replaced us with illegal aliens. You are about to have a major race war in Chicago, and it's going to be Chicago Black residents versus the Venezuelans. The Venezuelans have taken over everything. I went from a homeless shelter. It's not even a homeless shelter. It's a tent encampment in Chicago. Squalor. I wearing a suit and tie as I'm going to do interviews with people. So I walk through this. My clothes reeked of urine and feces because they were defecating and urinating everywhere. They were eating. They looked like dirt all over them. But guess what's right down the street? Right down the street is a place called the Standard Club, holds anywhere from 700 to 1,200 illegal aliens, completely renovated, brand new rooms, showers, laundry service, 3 meals a day, built for illegal aliens. Outside the Standard Club, I see a white man that is absolutely homeless, destitute, mental illness, couldn't be more than 30 years old. He can't get in there. Let me make sure, let me paint this picture so you understand how evil our government is. When illegal aliens fly into O'Hare in Chicago, they get transported to a migrant, they call it migrant, illegal alien transit center. I want you to think of a Hollywood or a big entertainment wedding tent, those giant white wedding tents, that gleaming white sunbeams bouncing off. Think of 4 of them, big ones. Now think of beautifully colored signs saying clothes, free medication, food. And then that's where they go and get medicated, give new clothes, give where they're going to live for free. And outside of this waiting area are 5 beautiful, clean city buses that run. They sit there. They don't move. They run 24 hours a day. So the illegal aliens aren't cold or hot in Chicago. 200 yards away, Alpha, 200 yards away, I'm walking in human feces and piss that our brothers and sisters are living in. And a black man comes up and talks to me. He couldn't be more than 35 And he goes, I said, what's it like, man? He goes, this winter, me and my buddies, we started to get frostbite on our hands and our feet. And we grabbed our blankets and we walked. You know, have you ever been to Chicago? It's brutal.
I've
brutal
heard.
cold. So you walk, he says, we're walking with our blankets to the buses. And he goes, I can look up in the buses and it's filled with illegal aliens eating freshly cooked food, their brand new clothes on. And he goes, I'm knocking on the window of the door. And he's saying, please let me in. We're freezing to death. And the bus driver said, only for migrants, and wouldn't let them on the bus. This is happening across America, dude. We are absolutely, I'm infuriated when I talk about it.
I feel you on that, JJ. And I was curious right now. So I went and looked it up to get an estimate of how many homeless veterans that we have right now in the United States. And these numbers, the most recent numbers I can find are from 2022, and it's just over 35,000 veterans that it says that are homeless. And so I went and did the math on it, considering how much money you've already kind of told me we've spent. At 35,000 homeless veterans, you could have bought them each a $200,000 house. It would have cost us $7 billion.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about almost $1 trillion.
$1 trillion. And I'm being conservative. Okay, here's okay. Look, I'm a conservative guy. I believe in self-reliance, and I believe you pull yourself up bootstrap. I've had horrible things happen in my life, and you just got through it as American male. You just do it, right? So you and I can have a nuanced argument about a discussion. Is there too much money going to veterans? Is there too much money going to homelessness? Is it the right program? We can have that nuanced argument. What we can never argue about is that the federal government and state and local governments have diverted all of their money and resources to foreign nationals that have broke our law, and they're shitting all over our veterans and our brothers and sisters in America. I will not have that discussion. There's no room for it. It's like me taking my wife and my son and throwing them out into the cold rain and bringing in neighbors to make sure they're warm and cold and warm and fed when my wife and my son are shivering in ratty blankets, no food. I can't believe our nation has become this. But I need everyone to understand, this is not some bad policy. This is evil people trying to destroy America. If you want to think that this is just happening to America, look at Western Europe. Western Europe has been devastated by illegal immigration. The flood of Southern Hemisphere people into the Western nations destroyed them. They have to bring down America in order to reset America, reset the globe. These are not my words. I'm not coming up with this verbiage. This is the global elite telling you what they're going to do. And it's happening in America. 45 million to 50 million illegal aliens. How do we overcome that?
Well, that was a question I had set up for later, but let's address that now. Let me tell you my concern. And now it's an even bigger concern. So let me first ask you this. You know, I remember, I worked out here in Southern California near like the Palm Springs area. And I remember, man, this was probably around maybe 2012, 2011, around that window where they had told us, because the city I worked for became a sanctuary city, you know, even though that's not what we wanted, that's what the city chose. We weren't even, we had a policy that did not allow us to work with Border Patrol. And I mean, if they wanted to push it, they could push it as far as insubordination. Now, there was workarounds that the guys have that I can talk about now where, hey, we needed help for translation and things like that.
Yeah.
You know, but the fact that you even had to do that was already an issue. But the one thing I do remember, and this is back then when we didn't have a crisis, but if we needed Border Patrol's response to something, you still had about a 20, 30-minute wait. We know that law enforcement is just understaffed just for general crimes that already exist, not even going into the realm of, you know, Border Patrol things. How does this even get addressed? I mean, my mind just can't fathom that we even have the staffing in place, because it's not like you could just tell law enforcement, hey, we're just going to collaborate with Border Patrol. We're going to go get all these guys, because then you abandon just regular, police work. So that's not possible. None of these agencies have the money to just hire new people. So, there might be a few here and there. So I don't really see law enforcement being able to proactively help, outside of like exigent circumstances.
Right.
I see what's going on with Border Patrol. If we get to a position where we have a good president in place, and all of a sudden we say, hey, now we're going to lock it down, how do you still deal with the millions that are here? And then the second half of the question, JJ, is because now this is my worry that I didn't have before talking to you, and so I'm grateful, but it's also just so disheartening. If we shut the money down to these people, that is going to create chaos. Who deals with that?
We're going to deal with that, my friend. And that is an incredible point that you made. Okay, let me address the second part of your question, and then we'll go to the quote solutions. I don't have to come up with theoreticals. I'm just going to give you examples. What's happening in New York, Chicago, Boston, LA, San Francisco. They're running out of money. They don't have any more money. You had a large group of people in New York that stormed City Hall in New York and demanded that they needed cultural appropriated food because the food wasn't good enough that we were giving them. Okay? New York and Chicago are evicting U.S. citizens out of homeless shelters and placing illegal aliens in homeless shelters. We are already seeing crime spiral out of control. New York City is a sanctuary city. Mayor Adams has come out, who I think is a bona fide moron, but he has come out and he stated, we have to, this is almost a quote, we have to find a workaround our sanctuary laws in order to keep these people in prison because we can't stop it. You just had 2 or 3 days ago, a Venezuelan illegal alien, 19 years old, on a moped, going the wrong way down the street in New York. 2 cops give chase. He turns around on his moped and fires and shoots one cop in the chest and shoots another one in the leg. Thank God the cop was wearing a bulletproof vest and saved his life. Guy hit in the leg, he's going to be okay. But that is one of millions. A million. I got a FOIA request from a guy in Chicago. He showed me the number of crimes committed in these migrant detention facilities. We're in the thousands. Thousands. The crime is going to explode, dude. It already is. They're hiding the numbers. When they talk about, this is a side issue, but not really. Under Joe Biden, when every year, and you know this, we take our data and our stats and we push it to the state, and the state pushes it to the FBI, and they create their log, right? Their database, and they push it back out to us. This is the crime statistics, break it down by age, ethnicity, race, religion, whatever we want to find. 38 cities refuse to partake in that anymore. And they're saying crime is kind of down. Crime is down because you haven't counted New York and LA. New York PD and LAPD have the biggest numbers, and they don't even, so no one's reporting the crime. Crime is outrageous now. And to go to, well, what do we do? Again, I don't have to give you theoreticals. I can tell you how it was done under Trump and what Eisenhower did back in 1954. Eisenhower created a program called Operation Wetback. I know that's going to trigger the left, but that's the operation it was called. And it forced Mexican nationals and Central American nationals to leave America on the threat of being arrested, put in jail, and then never be allowed to come in. Now, that's all changed because 30% of everyone that crosses the border is other than Mexican. 70% of everyone we arrest is from, there's 195 nations out on planet Earth. We have in arrest data in Border Patrol arrest records, over 180 nations. 180 nations out of 195 are here in America. So my point is, you have brought over, you have facilitated and encouraged men that have traveled 6,000 miles, paid $50,000 to be smuggled, and took 6 months to get here from the continent of Africa, the Middle East, Venezuela. They ain't going. We're going to have to go hunt them down and get them out. Now you have 1 million terrorists and soldiers that have been directed to come here. They're definitely not leaving. They have orders. You're not going to leave Iraq. If you leave Iraq, you're a deserter. We're going to put you in jail or kill you. Those warriors that over here, we don't have to like them, but they're soldiers. They're going to follow their orders. And you think they're sending over their work soldiers? Are you thinking they're sending over their boots? Or are you thinking they're sending over their sergeants and lieutenants and their special forces? Because here's the stupidity of it all. They can send over their soldiers and their terrorists, and they don't even have to feed them. We're going to feed them. We're going to give them brand new clothes. We're going to give them places to live. We're going to medicate them. That's what we're doing. Now, at the same time that you close the border down with the military, this has to happen immediately, all at once. You close the border with the military. All of our military is down there. We close it down. We do eminent domain, and we create a no-man land, a military zone. If it's okay for North and South Korea, it's damn well okay for the United States of America to have it. Hell, our soldiers are there. 38-something thousand soldiers are securing the Korean Peninsula, not America. And then at the same time, you create E-Verify. If you're an illegal alien, you can't get any social benefits. You can't rent a house. You can't buy a house. You can't go to school. You can't go get medicine. You can't do anything. And they will self-deport. But then you will have to go into the inner cities and into the rural communities, and you're going to have to drag these people out of our nation. Because we have gone so far down the slope of destruction, treason, and malice, that in order to get back up, there's going to be blood in the streets, my friend. There's no other way around it. If Joe Biden steals the election again, you are going to have the acceleration of what we look at today is going to be sophomoric. He's going to destroy America within a year or two. There'll be another 30 million within a year or two. It's over. Trump wins, and he creates the world's largest deportation force, as he stated multiple times. Then people like me will come back and work, but it will be bloodshed. You know how it is. You want to this is not CSI Miami, where you go, you're under arrest, and they go, okay. When I arrest somebody, and I think that I was a damn good law enforcement officer, and please correct me if you think I'm wrong on this, handcuffing someone that is compliant is clunky. It's difficult. Their wrists are too big. They're too small. I can't get their arms bent back. It sucks. When somebody doesn't want to be arrested, it's almost impossible without using extreme force to make them submit and cuff them. And even then, it's violent, it's dirty, it sucks. Now imagine doing that 40 to 50 million times. How many situations, just by simple math and probability, you are going to have massive shootings. Police officers, Border Patrol are going to get killed. It's going to be horrible. That is what I see is going to happen. But it can. We're the United States of America. I can send 330,000 Special Forces, Marines, Army, Air Force, and take over a nation, but you're telling me I can't stop a bunch of peasants and children from crossing our border? Are you insane? We don't want to. We have encouraged this. Look, this is a great interview, but I want to explain or give an example of how big this situation is. You and I have been talking almost an hour. We haven't scraped the surface yet, man. We haven't even talked about the narcotics. We haven't talked about 600,000 children being sex trafficked and lost in America. The government has no idea where they are. We haven't talked about scrape the top of social benefits, cultural norms, the elections, the electric, NGOs. We're looking at a mutant octopus that should have 8 arms, 8 tentacles. It has 100 tentacles and is destroying America. I have witnessed this go through my career, but never in my last year, I was like, dear God, what is this guy doing? He's going to destroy America. And if I'm really intellectually honest, which I am, never in my wildest dreams, never could I have envisioned what they've been able to accomplish. It is so big. They have done so much damage. I haven't even gotten into family reunification and how they've reclassified illegal aliens to bring in their family. So that 50 million is going to turn into 150 million within 10 years. This is a demographic shift, and everyone's going to scream, oh, he's a racist, a white guy's a racist. This is not about race. This is about a demographic shift from citizens to non-citizens. That's it. They can't control me and you. We know what our rights are. Our inalienable rights given from God, the First, Second Amendment. We understand we're a republic. The vast majority of illegal aliens are illiterate in their own language. Illiterate in their own language. The rest of them have like a 6th grade education, don't speak English. How are they going to assimilate into America? They're not. You want a case study? You live in California? Tell me, does California resemble what it looks like today than it did 25 years ago?
Not even close.
25 years ago, California was, or 30 years ago, was a predominantly red state. 45 electoral college votes went to the Republican president every time. It is a super majority Democrat because California has allowed in millions of illegal aliens that have split loyalties to Mexico, to the U.S. These are facts. This is not my feelings. I'm not a crazy ass liberal whiny rhino. I'm just telling you straight, cold, hard facts. You don't have to like me. You don't have to like the way I talk, that I'm white, that I'm alpha male. You don't have to like any of that shit. I'm just telling you, this is what's happening. You don't have to like it, but my data is clean. My data is true. My experience of 24 years is telling you what the hell is happening. And I'll go back to the question I asked at the very beginning of our conversation. If you don't like my conclusion, then why don't you tell me what the hell's going on? And no one can give me an answer because it's bigger. Look, I don't expect America or Americans to understand completely what's going on because I have to give some grace even to myself, who I thought that I had a very good handle on the enormity of it. But so much so that when I went back to the border 2 years later, I was completely shocked at the enormity of it. Let me try to explain what I mean when I talk about how good they have gotten at bringing people in, okay? You remember under Trump, the leftists were bringing those caravans up, right? The caravans through the NGOs are international organizations run by international people that have no loyalty to the U.S. So the NGOs that were bringing hundreds of thousands of people up from the Darien Gap through Central America into Mexico and then all try to get into America. That was clunky. Like they weren't funded right. They didn't have the right transportation. They didn't have way stations that Mayorkas was going to build in the future to take care of them. The Border Patrol was unprepared to take in millions of people. We didn't have the processes to do it. Then when we turned them over to the NGOs, which I did my last year reluctantly, they were clunky. They didn't know, they didn't have hotels, they didn't have buses, they didn't have anything. When I went back, when I left, it was still that way. 2 years later, when I went back, and then I went into Chicago, and then I went into Texas, I was shocked at how efficient they had become. They are now so well funded. I use this analogy. It was like Mr. Ford building a Model T by hand, right? And churning out 10, 20 Model Ts. And then he decided we could do assembly line and get on a conveyor belt. And I'm going to churn out 1,000 a day. That's what it's like now in the United States Border Patrol. It is efficient. It is, think of 15,000 people crossing the border right now. 15,000. Think of them as soldiers. The mechanism, the industrial sized machine that you need to move 15,000 people from the border of Afghanistan or the border of Iraq and move them in the interior. That's huge, isn't it? That's a big operation. Now imagine every single day 15,000 more soldiers come in, and 15,000 more soldiers, and 15,000 more soldiers. That is enormous. The cost is exponential, but the amount of people that have to be in that organization to move them into the interior. It's an industrial military operation. And I understand how I sound, dude. I do. There are times where I'm talking to you right now that there's a voice in the back of my head that says, shit, you're going to have to say this out loud. And people are going to call you nasty names, and they're going to say that you're crazy. I get it. I get how I sound, dude. But everything that I have said throughout my career, I wrote a book about it. I'm doing a documentary. I'm telling you, I know what the hell I'm talking about. Fact check everything that I'm telling you today. Everything. Because I want you to be informed, but I want you to understand that everything that I'm saying is true. I'm not making any of this stuff up.
Your information, I can tell your information is accurate, JJA, because like I said, I have a unique perspective. You know, I'm not a regular guy. I did the job for a decade and a half, and you're filling in the gaps of where I didn't know. And I was like, well, it has to be like this. And then to hear it, it's like, I fathom it being bad, but I mean, like you said at the very beginning, you have no idea. And I think that's what people need to realize, because this weekend people are going to barbecue and they're going to go swimming and they're going to go to the mall, and they don't realize that this country is on the precipice of collapse with just the border crisis. And it's not like we're not fighting on all kinds of fronts with the economy and with all this other stuff. I mean, this is a major issue. And if this was the only issue, our country's in trouble. And unfortunately, it's not the only issue. Let me ask you this, because I want to touch on this before we let you go, and I want to show your trailer so you can give us a little heads up on that and the one that you're working on. But with the kids, what is the number that we're looking at right now on these kids that are coming through? And I know that a lot are unaccounted for, but what is the last best estimation of the sexual trafficking that's being done to these kids?
Okay, this is hard. This is hard for me. I hate this. Okay, like, I don't know how you were or how you are, but I'm assuming you're kind of like me. Throughout my career, I could arrest rapists, murderers, gang members, and I could go home and take a shower and I'd go to bed. I didn't care. I was so desensitized to evil. I didn't care. I could eat a sandwich while I was processing them, and it didn't matter. It didn't affect me. The moment I arrested a child rapist, God, man, that would stay with me for days. Days. Because I knew that if I didn't catch that savage animal and he got by me somehow, I lost him in the woods, that absolutely he was going to brutalize children in America. I knew it. So when you talk to me about child sex trafficking, I need everyone, God, it's such a horrible, dirty, nasty subject. The current number that under DHS, under Joe Biden, they have arrested and released over 600,000 children. Okay? People that are in the know believe that number is closer to 800 to a million. Okay? I would tell you, I don't believe in every and all, that you can't say things like that. The majority of the children that we're releasing are either sex trafficked or labor trafficked. This is not me. Okay, I was in Texas last weekend. I'm going to give you 2 examples. Okay, there's 400 child detention centers across America. 400, ranging from holding facilities of tens to thousands, with 500 unaccompanied children coming in through the border every single day. So they're moving them out as fast as they can. Let me give you two examples in Texas. In Carrizo Springs has 5,000 people living there. They're counting the cows. There's no way there's 5,000 people living there. There's one gas station. If I did not know where this child detention facility was in Carrizo Springs, I drove right by it, because you have to turn on a dirt road. And then you go a half a mile into the scrub brush, desolate Texas, middle of nowhere. There's a giant FEMA camp that holds 1,000, 2,000 children. Hidden away, you would never know. I drove 8 hours south to Brownsville, Texas, and this company, NGO, bought a super mega Walmart, the biggest Walmart you can ever imagine, and it's all for children. They have over 400 employees. 400 employees. That doesn't account for the escorts that take the children all over the nation. I spoke to a man named Carlos that worked in all of those facilities for about 6 to 8 years. And the horror stories that he tells me, I said to him, is this a child sex trafficking ring? Absolutely. Are children being raped and sexually assaulted inside those facilities? Yep. Tell me about it. He started to describe it in 15 seconds. He told me, I won't talk about this anymore. I've tried to get over it, and I can't go down there anymore. He told me about how they would escort children to the wrong house, and then the people would take them. Let's say that you are a Mexican national and you're in Vermont, and I just flew all day to Vermont to give you a 10-year-old Nigerian daughter. You would be like, what? Where's my 5-year-old son? But your 5-year-old son, we transported down to Florida to a Nigerian family. That's the story. They don't call. They don't say, hey, you gave me the wrong child. Nope. They just took him in. If you're waiting for your beautiful 5-year-old son and they deliver a 10-year-old Nigerian daughter, you're going to say, time out. But if you're a child sex trafficker, you're just going to take what they bring you. This is happening across America. Across America. These are not, listen, as I left government, as you do, and I'm sure the connections you have, you start meeting people that have higher levels of security clearance, people that are doing the same job as you, investigating. Let me just make 2 points on this subject that I know I'm absolutely right. I'm talking to people the last couple of days that are telling me that not only is child sex trafficking going, child organ harvesting is happening. They are killing the children in child sacrifice. I'm hearing a story today of them taking off the limbs, the arms, and the legs of a child, so that's a sexual fetish, so they can have sex with a child with no arms and no legs. And then I want you to understand that you have to listen to the words of our leaders, because they're telling you something. You have to listen. So Donald Trump, 3 days ago, was on Fox and Friends in the morning, but it wasn't in their studio. It was in a hotel somewhere. It was dark. And they asked him a question. Sir, last year we had 140,000 unaccompanied alien children cross the border, and they started going on. And he said, yes, a lot of them are already dead. And they talked over him. And then he paused again and said, a lot of them are already dead. Well, how does a lot of them die? Did they cross the border and get COVID-19 and explode and die? And what is a lot? So I'm a MAGA Trump guy. He has information, I know, that child sacrifice is going on. I know that child sex trafficking, and why you say child sex trafficking is it's so lucrative. If I bring over, as you know, a kilo of cocaine and I cut it up in baggies and I sell it, I can only sell it one time. It's gone. I could take a child and I could sex traffic that child 5 to 10 times a day for eternity until they die, until they get raped to death. And this is why I said in the beginning of your show, this is a moral stain on society, because our government is we the people. We the people are allowing our government to participate in the world's largest child sex trafficking. It's indisputable. You don't have to like it. It can make you sick and feel nauseous, but you have to at least acknowledge that it's happening. Because if you don't, you're complicit.
I know 100% you're accurate with that information, JJ. A few months ago, right around the time the Sound of Freedom came out, I had a chance to do an interview with Paul Hutchinson, and he shared some of the stories of things that couldn't even make the film, and it just beyond terrifying. And for those of us that have gone and researched it to see what this is like, I came across a documentary that was coming out of Europe and parts of Ukraine on these kids that were, they were the commodity for the sex trafficking. And I remember this very hard to watch documentary, but if the sin of what was already these kids were being subjected to wasn't bad enough, then I hear how some of these kids, 5, 6 years old, were trying to commit suicide. And I'm like my mind, as much as I've been exposed to, just struggled with the idea of what can a 5 and 6 year old who doesn't even know what suicide is feel like, that this is the only way out of this torture. And then to know that, you hear the stuff with the Falun Gong and, the organ harvesting and it's being done to these kids and the satanic rituals. I told people at the tail end of, my exit in law enforcement, I was just getting into the investigations of MS-13. Some of the street informants that I was like, hey, there's these new guys coming out, it was in a Mecca Thermal, that area out there, that were like, hey, we're getting these MS-13 guys that are out here. And I remember when I started looking into them, I was just like, man, these are some scary people. And I'm hearing from some of the BP guys that I talked to is that there's tons of them that are already in
and
the
they're releasing them. They're releasing them, all of them. Think of that. Think of what I just said. MS-13, Tren de Aragua, ARGUA, the Venezuelan prison gang. Just release them. Man, this is very dark times. And law enforcement guys see things much differently. We connect the dots, and we don't look at the present so much. We're looking at the future. Like, okay, if these trends continue, what's going to happen? And every trend you look at, it's not good. We're talking about Javier Becerra over HHS and Office of Refugee Resettlement, ORR, are responsible for children. All of these children. Think of a federal CPS, if you will. They're in front of Congress and they're saying, we don't know where any of these kids are. Do you know how many follow-up there is once you drop a kid off? Zero. Do you know that if I'm the sponsor, that I don't have to be there to get the kid, that I can have a proxy go and they just take a picture of my ID and that's enough to drop the kid off?
I was talking to, and I'm trying to remember his name. Arellano, I think is his last name, but he was one of the guys that was doing transporting. He was one of the whistleblowers. He's friends with Aaron and Tara Lee Rodas. But he was telling me that he would get females, and there would be a mishap in the transportation to where he'd have to stay in a hotel with them. And he's like, he's calling and they're like, well, this is the way it is. And fortunate, he's a good guy that's not going to victimize them. But he's like, man, not all the people that are transporting are, you know, the background check isn't what people think it is. And I'm
There
like,
is no
so
background check. There is no background check. And I'm talking to guys that are inside telling me, yeah, they're felons. Now, I'm not bagging on every felon that's released. They need a chance to redeem themselves and become whole citizens. However, Alpha, if you're operating a evil criminal organization, are you going to hire men like me and you?
nope,
Are you going to hire criminals?
criminals all
Pay
day.
them, and they're going to do your criminal activity. And this is why the federal government uses NGOs, is they're washing their hands. And my source inside DHS told me very straightforward, JJ, the federal government does not run the NGOs. The NGOs run the federal government. That means international corporate individuals and corporations are running the United States of America. This is strategic, it is intentional, and it is purposeful. They have laid this out, and they are winning. They're winning. I hate to say it. I can't stand my workers. I hate all those people because they have destroyed my 24 years of service. They've destroyed and are destroying America from within. There's no way that we can sustain 50 million people in our country illegally. Can't. And I challenge anyone to articulate how we can.
So many questions, JJ. I hope I get to bring you back for another conversation in the near future. I want to play your trailer, and then when we come back to the trailer, my final question to you, and you can let everybody know how to support you, where to find you when we come back from the trailer. But just something to think about while we watch this is, what does the best case scenario look like for us if Trump wins in November, and what does worst case scenario look like if he doesn't? If you can think about that, I'm going to bring up the trailer, guys. Take a look at this, and we'll continue this conversation on the other side.
I'm going to take you on a journey that's going to prove that Joe Biden and his administration are traitors and they have committed treason against America. I only have one question for you. But before I ask that question, I want to take you back in time. We're going to transport everyone back to January 19th, 2021, the day before Joe Biden takes office. And I'm going to stand before you and I'm going to say I came from the future 4 years from now. And I'm going to tell you what this man's going to do. First day in office, he is going to sign 94 executive orders to eviscerate every immigration policy Donald J. Trump has put into effect. He will take a border that was the most secure border in American history and turn it on its head. Within 4 years, Joe Biden will have arrested over 12 million people. 250,000 of them will be special interest aliens, which in other words, in layman's terms, terrorists. They'll be arrested and released. Since the time he's become president in the 4 years, Joe Biden has created the world's largest child sex trafficking organization in modern history. He will have arrested and released over 500,000 unaccompanied alien children called UACs. Their ages are from infancy to 17 years old. They just released them to a nation that is the #1 consumer of child pornography. Connect the dots. Our government is destroying America from within. I will not stand by and allow it to happen. That's why I'm going to go to across the nation and I'm going to show you the manifestation of this treason. You're going to see crime that you can't even fathom. You're going to see a degradation of the social benefits and welfare for American citizens being ripped from them and given to illegal aliens. You're going to see cities like Chicago, New York, Boston, Philadelphia, and you're going to see them divert tens of millions of dollars. In New York City, they're going to divert almost $12 billion for illegal aliens. The city of Chicago has brought to its knees social welfare, murder, crime. You can't imagine. Hundreds of millions of dollars for illegal aliens, and I don't care about my residents. They can all pound sand. We are living in a world where our government hates us, and I'm going to go on a journey, and I am going to prove it to you. And the question I have after all of this has been done, if everything I tell you is the truth, and it is, do you call Joe Biden a patriot or a traitor?
All right. What do you think of that trailer?
I'll tell you what, that's like the fourth time I've seen it. It gave me it started playing in my ear again. Uh, it gave me goosebumps the first time, man, because I know it's the truth. And because I know it's the truth, it's all my worst fears coming to life because I got two little baby girls. One that's gonna, turn 4 here in a few months, and one that's gonna turn 1 this month. And these predators are lurking out there very close to where I live. And 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 knowing how dangerous they are right now, with the way things are right now, because everything's being set up for their success, which
Yeah.
is our victimization. But at least you have an element of law enforcement that, even though their hands are being tied behind their back, they're at least trying. They're trying. And I know, seeing this, listening to you, knowing their intentions, the other people I talk to, there's going to come a point where law enforcement is going to be completely ineffective if something doesn't happen. And when that happens, that means unless I'm with my family 24/7, that they're probably going to get victimized. And it scares the hell out of me, JJ. It really does scare the hell out of me.
And it should. And I'm not a helicopter dad. I have a young son. He's 12 going on 13. And I need to make him a man. He's going to be 18 in 5 years. I need to make him a man. And you have to make your young daughters strong women. But they're kids. And like, I'm almost out of, my son's almost out of that child trafficking age, right? Another year or two, he's going to be like a young man. And they don't want young men. They want little boys and little girls. And I think men like you and I are very different from a lot of people, especially the beta males in America, is that we recognize that there's evil. There's evil. There are people that are filled with, let's just be honest, they're like demons. They don't think like us. They don't process pain and suffering or raping a woman or raping a child or killing a man. It's like going to the movies for them. And it's tough. But men like us, we have to speak the truth, man. Like, what you're doing is powerful, and it's important, because if everything goes to hell, okay, this is what drives me. I don't know if it drives you, and I would assume it does. In 30 years, when my son is married and has kids, and we're sitting together, and the world, I pray that I'm 100% wrong. I hope it's kumbaya and rainbows. But let's say it's not. My son is never going to look at me and say, Dad, you knew everything that was happening. You were in the Border Patrol. You went on these trips. You know. And you didn't say a damn thing, Dad. How do you live with yourself that you were a coward and you didn't say anything? That's never going to happen to me. My son is going to look at me and he's going to say, Dad, people called you vile names. They said you were crazy, but everything you said came true, Dad. And I love you because you were a man and you did what had to be done. That's what drives me. I don't care what everyone says, because I know that I'm speaking the truth. I know it. Just like when you're on the job, you know what you're doing is righteous. People say that you're a racist and you abuse people's rights. You don't care because you know you're not doing that. You're keeping America safe. That's how I feel. And you ask me, what is going to happen? I see two scenarios, and I'm going to be very honest with you. I don't see any of them good, okay? You have Joe Biden. Joe Biden will have to die, or he'll fall out of something, and someone will come in, Gavin Newsom or something, but the course is going to stay. The Republicans are impotent, a bunch of beta males that don't do anything, and they're complicit in this evil. The Democrats will run roughshod. We will see the number of illegals skyrocket to tens of thousands a day. The devastation in America will be complete. Donald Trump, somehow he wins, God willing. We have the world's largest deportation force. He will go into the cities and the communities, and he will eradicate people. Antifa and BLM will come out of the woodwork. Law enforcement officers will have fights, deadly use fights, not only with illegal aliens, but their own citizens. There will be blood on the streets either way. The only thing with Trump that it will end after about 18 months and we will get a sense of order and people will crime will decrease, but there will be a bludgeoning, there'll be a purge for 18 months. I hope I'm wrong. Like I said, I hope everything I said today is wrong, but everything I said throughout my career, and when I got back into this fight over a year ago and wrote a book, I did 200-300 podcast interviews. Everything that I've been saying has been coming true. Everything. My wife is a harsh critic of me. She's trying to keep me in check. And she says, everything that you have written and said has come true, man. And that scares me, JJ. I said, well, I'm not trying to scare anybody. I'm just trying to say what it is. And what it is an intentional, strategic, and purposeful destruction of the United States of America. And I'm going to give you 3 quotes. Not my words. We are going to fundamentally transform America. We are going to have unrelenting waves of immigration, so much so that it's going to change the Anglo-Saxon white American will be the minority majority, and that's a good thing. 3, we need illegal aliens to come and replace United States workers. That was President Obama, that was Vice President Joe Biden, and that was Chuck Schumer. Those are 3 quotes by 3 of the leaders of the Democratic Party. I would love to quote the Republicans, but I can't find them. They're hiding. So we have 3 of the leaders of the Democratic Party telling you what they're going to do. Their actions match their words, right? We learn, do you have the means, the opportunity, and the intent to commit the crime? Yes, you've met all 3 of those criteria. I may use deadly force, or I may now show probable cause and effect an arrest. So I'm looking at it from a very different perspective. I look at their words, I look at their actions, and I see the outcomes, and I say that is treason. And I can prove it.
100%. I know I said that was my last question, JJ. If you allow me 2 minutes, I know you got to be exhausted, man. You know, and we'll have a chance, I'm sure, because there's a lot of conversation I want to have with you, especially offline.
Good.
But, you know, I did gangs. That was my thing. I was a gang detective. I did undercover, you know, worked in the task force, you know, made my way through the ranks like every other guy. But one of the things in planning large scale operations when I was targeting gangs was also to understand that when we do this, what are they going to do in response? And how are they going to shift so we can be ahead of them? And so when I look at this, and this is speculation from my side, but it comes from, you know, I would say my educated background. I tell people all the time, we see predictive programming. We see, you know, the Obama and those other film crews put out Civil War. We see these things on, you know, transpiring. And the one thing that I've seen with conservatives, and I could argue that this is good, and I could argue that this is probably bad too, is we really do handcuff ourselves with our virtues. And conservatives are very law-abiding people, which is why our government gets away with so much shit. But I tell them, all these people coming across the border don't just look like what we said earlier, that, you know, Mexico or the Mexicans. There's demographics that blend in with every demographic that's in this country in large part. And if these people are to start doing things against law enforcement, which I really strongly believe they're going to, and start doing these other things, they can make it look like a civil war is happening. And then my concern is, and this kind of falls back to the game plan they did with January 6th, where you get something that's synthetic, but when regular people start to see it and think it's really happening, now you start to see an organic growth to it. And then shit just gets out of control. And I really have a worry with that, man, on what they may be trying to scheme to set this nation up, because I think they fear the election. I think they truly fear it, and they're looking for a way to how do we postpone it, or how, you know, delay it? What can we do? And kind of what reaffirmed my theory there is when we look at Ukraine and Zelensky, because they're in war, he said, hey, we need to make sure everybody can vote, and what's going on right now, we can't, so we're postponing the elections. So then I gauged what the way all the world leaders were going to respond to that, and everybody was okay with it. And I said, well, there's your precedence. And I mean, Well, what do you think about that, man? And then after that, I'll let you tell everybody where to find you. But I got you here, and I want to hit you with that one.
No, I think it's a great question. A lot of people I speak to that are in the know, right? They all believe something's going to happen before 2024 election. And the reason why I believe that something will happen is because I'm looking at it from their perspective. You said you go into gangs, you have to stop, and you have to, if you're going to beat somebody, you have to know, like you're playing a football game. I can perfect what I do, but I have to understand what they're going to do in order to combat it, beat them, and win. Same thing in gang violence. Same thing when I ran a narcotic unit. I had to think like they did. So you have to think like the Democrats, and not just Democrats, but the global reset people. If everything I'm telling you is true, and it is, and they're this close to winning, why would they walk away? The amount of money, effort, determination, perseverance to get to this level of destruction and treason is enormous. So you're telling me on the inch line of the Super Bowl, and all you have to do is do a quarterback sneak and win the Super Bowl, that you just walk off the field and say, it's okay, you guys win. No. Come on, man. They're this close to winning. They're not going to stop. And do I think what it's going to be? I don't know. I don't know. Is there going to be a civil war? Maybe, but I don't know what that manifest looks like. It's not the Union versus Confederates. Everybody knows who's what. We have no idea. It's going to be jungle warfare, right? Illegal aliens. I know Alex Jones. People say things, whatever they want to say about him. He comes out with they're training, the UN are training the soldiers on the South Side before they come into America. Why is that so hard to believe? Why is that so hard to believe? Now, when I tell you, do you know that there's 2,000 Chinese scientists living in the northern part of Mexico and that they ship the pill presses over? Well, what are 2,000 Chinese nationals that are scientists doing in Mexico? Well, they're creating fentanyl, guys. Why is the pill presses coming over? Why are they China shipping all their soldiers over here? Why? And again, do you think nothing's going to happen? Are you looking at our enemies or looking at how weak we are? They're seeing a president, literally, at D-Day, looks like he's taking a crap. He's squatting down as like he's going to sit and go to the bathroom. The president of France is so grotesque by him. He's trying to figure out how to get out. Do you think our adversaries don't see him and see us and say they're weak? But they also see 6 months from now, this alpha male that will drop bombs on your head named Donald Trump is coming in. I could see it. I could see the CCP. I could see Iran. I could see Russia all going, dude, accelerate. Plan B, accelerate everything. Get as many people as you can. We'll go to war before, maybe after Trump. I want another 100,000 PLA soldiers in America now. And if you don't think that's happening in this bizarro world we're living in, then you're a fool. And I don't know what to tell you. In fact, I don't want to waste my time. I don't. I'm just telling you what's happening. And I want you to fact check me. And people fact check me all the time. I'll tell you a quick story. A left-wing podcast from the UK called me and said, I want to talk to you about what you're saying. But we fact check real time. I said, great. I love that. Let's do it. I think that's a great stick that you have. So imagine you are interviewing me and over to your left is your buddy that's fact checking. That's real time. I do an hour interview and this is what it looked like every 5 minutes. The guy would turn and look at his fact checker and he would come back and he'd go, that's right. That's right. That's the truth. And to his credit, when he was done, he said, I have to reevaluate everything that I thought, because everything you said is true. In my book, I got pages of citations, because everything that I say is factually backed up by either citation, experience, or speaking to somebody that is doing it in the weeds, or a combination thereof. I'm concerned about the most vulnerability America's ever been, but I appreciate you allowing me, God, an hour and a half to be able to really truly articulate my views and what I believe in. I believe this is the new medium for information. I think I do national TV shows and I get 6 minutes. What the hell can I talk about in 6 minutes? I think this is where the information is. So, man, I appreciate you having me on. I know it's not a joyous conversation. I know, and I wish I was not having these conversations, but I have to have them. So thank you for allowing me to speak.
The honor's been mine, man. It is a humbling conversation. I agree with you there, but if the people don't know, then they can't fight it.
Right.
J.J. CARRELL, where can people go to support you? And you have that documentary coming out September,
but we are being pressured to release it in September. At the end of that trailer, it was give, send, go, because we're doing it all on our own. I'd rather no one give, send, go. We've created a great website called thisistreason.com. Thisistreason.com. And you can pre-order for $9.99. Pre-order the documentary, which will come out in September. And for $14.99, you get all the behind the scenes. So when you watch a documentary and you say, God, that guy is great. Like I interviewed a guy named Tyrone Muhammad, out of jail for 21 years for murder, turned his life around. Great, very articulate man from Southside Chicago. You'd want to hear what he has to say. Comes up with some really ingenious ideas, but I can only give him 3 minutes on 90 minutes. I'm cramming thousands of hours down 90 minutes. So when you do $14.99, my team, we're going to post hundreds of hours of edited behind the scenes and interviews. But if for $9.99 for a cup of coffee, if you pre-order, this is probably my second or third show of actually promoting it, because we just got the website up, but we're selling like crazy, which is very reassuring. I'm very proud of this. It is not a boring documentary where you're like, oh my God, I'm so bored. That trailer is symbolic or representative of what my 90 minutes is going to be. I have 3 things. If you will allow me, just tell you 3 things that I want to have happen. I want you to purchase the documentary. I want you to watch it with your friends and family. And when it's over and the credits are done, I want you to physically be holding your breath for 90 minutes. And you're just like, exhale. That's the first thing. The second thing is I want you to be so shocked that you deny everything that I showed you. I want you to deny me. I want you to say, there's no way that's true. The third thing is I want you to fact check me and go back, and you're going to find out everything that I put on that documentary is 100% true, because that's just going to reinforce what is happening and what you need to do. Because you know this, once you find out that there's a problem, there's a crime, there's something, you have 2 choices. You either react and stop it, or you do nothing and you become complicit. And I'm excited about this. My production team and my partner and the editors are off the chart, dude, like off the chart at how they can do it. It'll be artistically beautiful, but it's going to be powerful and in your face. And you can find me at X14. And finally, on the website, every time that we go film, like we're going to New York and Boston on Thursday, and then Virginia and Colorado and Boston, Denver, and on and on and on. Every time I post 3 or 4 videos on my website. So you can go along that journey with me. So you can see my story that I'm going to tell, which no other documentaries do. And I like my website. I'm not technically computer savvy, so I like to click and go. And that's what I told my partner, click and go, man, click and go. And he said, okay, I can do that. So it's easy to navigate. So thank you again for your time, man. I really appreciate it. It's great to meet you too.
Likewise, you guys, J.J. Carrell on X at J.J. Carrell14. This is treason.com. All the links are down in the description. We run this commercial free to the end, so do me a favor, stick around, support the people that support this show, and I'll see you guys tomorrow night. God bless. Semper Fi.
Are you worried about the effects that higher inflation rates will have on your investments? Are you trying to secure your retirement savings against losses, but you notice that inflation is a hot topic these days? But how dangerous are low inflation rates on your retirement savings? An inflation rate of 2% may not seem like much, but it means that prices will just about quintuple over the lifetime of the average American. And 4% average inflation rate means that something that costs $1 when they're born will cost $23 when they die. That demonstrates the danger of even low inflation rates. So when it comes to gold and inflation rates, many investors want to know whether inflation rates have an effect on gold prices. What history indicates is that over the long term, increased inflation should lead to correspondingly higher gold prices. From September 1971 to August 2020, gold grew 7.5 times as much as inflation. Not only can an investment in physical gold help protect your assets against the damage done by inflation, it can also help grow the value of your retirement portfolio over the long term. If you're looking to protect your retirement assets, why wait until stock markets crash and gold begins to rise in price?